Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for June 29th, 2016. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES right now. What you'll notice is we've had a significant bounce here, and this is something that we warned about last week when we mentioned that anytime you see a significant sell-off like this, there's a tendency to see a nice fade back up once you find a point of rejection, and that point of rejection was 1981's. By the time we came in pre-market yesterday, 1999's here was already rejected, all prices below there. And I mentioned to our trading room, as long as price continues to hold 1999's and every retest back toward that level should be defended for a likely push into 2044 and 2052, as they are the micro composite and composite VPOCs of the current profiles. And so you see we've rallied right into 44s already. And once we hit value from above here, or from below, after taking it offered through it, this is going to be important here. This is where bears want to come in and defend the HVN and perhaps look for another leg lower. Any push through 2052 could reach the top of the range here and retrade 2075 back toward the midpoint of the previous key range. But for right now, what I mentioned before was, if there's a rejection of prices below the previous week's low, look for price to rally back to value. That's kind of what we've gotten so far. Now we have to see how does price respond at value, because after taking it offered, if the market begins to defend value again, bears look to defend value, then we could be looking at lower prices yet again. So got to see how prices respond here between 2044 and 2052. Taking a look at the intraday time frame for the ES, you can see it's been a straight on rally here, very, very solid strength. Overnight pivot is 2032, key level here at 2028. So we've been pushing higher here. Overall, pullbacks likely to be defended. We have a nice key level right here around 2036's. That's currently being defended, perhaps for a move into the primary bull target at 2049. We have 2052 as well. We've also had increased volatility, which means prices have been pushing beyond our primary 75% target and more often reaching the 100% target over the last week. So we could be seeing a continuation even as high as 59s if this thing really continues to push higher here. So we got to continue to watch how does price respond at 2028. So that's the ultimate area. Any rotation into that zone likely to be defended for a continuation higher. Again, watch to see what happens at 44 and 52. Any push into 52 and starts to see rejection could lead to a big return back toward key support levels. All right, taking a look at the crude oil chart here. Crude oil bouncing off the lows after failing to hold below the key range low. 46.40 here, failed to hold below it, so it popped back above. The midpoint of that range is 49.40. Anytime you reject below the key range, you typically bounce back toward the midpoint of its key range here. So we could be looking at a little bit more strength above. There is an LVN, 47.75, that remains the key level to watch. Prices closed above that zone here recently, and they want to continue to hold 47.75. If there is a rejection of prices above the 2-day highs and we break back below 47.75, we could be looking at another retest back toward the previous week's low at 46.70. So right now, this is the key pivot here. 47.75, bulls want to keep it bid for a push back to 49.78. Failure to hold above that pivot opens up a return to 46.70. On an intraday basis right now, you can see prices just holding 48.10s, 48.14s. Just kind of holding right now. A little bit of lower highs here over the last few hours, and we have a flat VWAP, which means we're in a trading range market for the most part. We'll want to bring out perhaps our PivotBoss bands, VWAP bands here, in order to identify the fades. Right now we're fading mostly off the first standard deviation on the bottom end and mostly off the first standard deviation on the top. So a clear trading range market so far. For crude oil, eventually we could see a nice breakout from this range. Again, 47.75 is the major level, so if price drops into that zone, the first idea will likely be that bulls want to defend it to see if they can get prices higher. Again, failure to hold that level opens up a return back toward 46.70. Taking a look at gold futures here, we have gold continuing to chop around 13.19. That's the top of this key range here. After rejecting prices into the 1370s, we're now trading within a very, very clear range here. I mean, this is a very, very tightly coiled range over the last 3.5 days, and we could see a significant breakout from this range. A break to the downside could take 12.99s offered, and that could lead to a return back toward the lower portion of the range. This is something we talked about before. 13.19 is very important. If price cannot find acceptance, then we likely rotate back toward 12.60 and perhaps lower. So continue to keep an eye on that. Right now, the key range to watch on top would be 13.40. Above that level opens up movement back toward 13.60 and perhaps beyond. So if you look at this thing in an intraday time frame, you can see that over the last several days, we've basically had a very clear trading range developing after the initial rejection. Here's your 13.40 level. There's your rejection above it into 13.60. And then you form this trading range here the rest of the time, 13.10s, 13.05s, and 13.40. So continue to trade the edges of this range, looking to return prices between 13.10 and 13.07 back up, and look to fade prices between 13.38 and 13.40 back down until expansion occurs. Lastly, looking at the NQ. The NQ seeing a little bounce as well here. This one is important because micro composite VPOC at 43.24 is fast approaching. So this is the micro composite VPOC here. The prices have rallied to within a couple of points of that level. We'll have to see how prices respond at value. For the most part, if you take value offered like this, like it did here, then a return to it is likely to be defended by bears for a shot at lower prices. So the early idea would be maybe some weakness comes in, maybe some absorption. If price cannot hold below that level and pushes through, the next HVN above is going to be 43.89.5. So right now we could be looking at a little bit of a push higher here, and at some point we may find some resistance that starts to work us back down. So we'll keep an eye on the NQ here, but as long as price remains here above 42.63, look for continued uptrending behavior, at least in the near term. On an intraday basis, you can see how bullish this thing has been. Our level here to watch for the trading room was right across these highs here, basically 42s, 42.10s. You can see the resistance here when price rallied. We were talking about any pullback into as deep as that zone could be a swing buying opportunity for a move up. Never quite got that low, instead holding off the previous week's low, 42.34, making that support and rallying it. So here's 43.24. Here's our secondary target for the day. That's 43.53. So we could be looking at further strength toward those targets here. Again, pullbacks likely to be defended. The overnight pivot, the midpoint of the day, 42.92, that could be an area to defend on the next rotation for a shot higher. You have a 5-day LVN here as well. So there is some support on a pullback for a shot at new highs. But after recent strength, we could see more of a digestion day as this thing pushes a little higher. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out the rest of the day. Good luck and trade well.